Hi, guys.
Hi.
I'm. Let's talk more about you. This is your episode. I'm terrible at the moment, but this is going to make for some great content on my Instagram, won't it?
Absolutely.
I know. I'm doing okay. I'm managing through a manic episode and psychotic episode right now, so I'm managing through that. But this isn't about me. This is about you guys. So you guys are Ross and Jayne Quick, and they are the co-founders of Quick Results Training, or QRT. QRT provides online anxiety, depression, and self-confidence coaching and exercise sessions for their members and clientele. Ross's personal journey and struggle with anxiety and depression, and Jayne's holistic and supportive approach to his recovery have been the foundations of QRT. Now they are assisting others on their journey. QRT's proven fitness, well-being, and mindfulness solutions support individuals who are struggling with stress, anxiety, and self-confidence to achieve physical, mental, and emotional health. So with an intro like that, obviously this is the Bipolar Bachelor Podcast. Thank you for joining us today. This is round 2 for me. I've recorded 2 episodes today, and I'm just a little shot. So on top of being manic and psychotic, so it's a joy. But I am privileged to be joined by the fabulous Ross and Jayne Quick from Queensland, Australia. As you know from the intro, they're the founders of Quick Results Training, and they're amazing. So Ross is going to talk mostly today because my voice is shot. So I hope you guys enjoy this episode.
Awesome. Thank you so much for having us, Jarred. Especially.
How are you guys doing today? There's a bit of a delay for you guys listening. There's a bit of a delay because they're in Australia. So we'll try and manage through that. So just be warned as you're listening to this, there may be a little bit of delay.
Thanks.
So, and this is live on YouTube too. We're also recording on Instagram at the moment.
Thank you so much for having us, Jarred, and please let us know if anything I talk about triggers you or anything like that, because I don't I've been there before in the past where sometimes people are talking about their episodes and that might have triggered me. So please,
we'll be very mindful of that.
Yeah.
So if you need us to stop it,
For sure.
you can always.
No, I appreciate that, you guys. I really do. I really appreciate you taking my current status and situation into play. But I'm quite capable of managing through this. I've been doing it 14 years now. Ross, you know what psychosis is like, and it's a scary thing. So let's talk about you and your journey through what has been hell and back. Describe to me what that looks like, what your journey has been for you with psychosis.
Yeah, look, it's been a long journey, and I suppose you learn the strategies over time, like yourself, Jarred, of just dealing with it. Like sounds like we've been both going through it for 14 years now, and yeah, it's tough. So I'm really feeling for you at the moment. Because definitely.
Oh, I appreciate that, my friend. Thank you.
But I suppose, it all started as a young man in his 20s, partying a little too hard with his friends. And I was, back in 2006, I was in Thailand on a boys' trip. And we were having a really good time. And we decided to have magic mushrooms as a group of friends. And I decided to leave my group of friends and be on my own, and that was probably the worst thing I could have done. So I had my first major psychotic episode, which I had no idea what was going on with me at that stage. I was not in touch with reality. I was in my own interpretation of hell, and I thought I could never get out of that loop of what I was going through at the time. Never heard of anything like a psychotic episode before. I didn't even think I knew the definition of anxiety at the time. I was living a life of debauchery where just alcohol, drug abuse, and that was fun to me, writing myself off with my friends and taking things like whatever I could get in my hands would be fun. And it definitely took its toll on me. In 2007 and 2008, I went traveling. We went through a I traveled with friends I lived in the UK and traveled through Europe and South America. And while I was living in the UK, I probably had my second major drug-induced psychosis event at a music festival where we're all in tents and enjoying dance music, and locked myself in my tent and didn't want to come out for a day or so. That was quite scary. Still didn't really know what was going on with myself. Eventually recovered from that and decided to continue partying while I was living in London, and planned the next trip to Spain. And we traveled through Barcelona and a few different areas of Spain, partied once again. And this time it was sleep deprivation.
You've mentioned partying quite a bit, Ross, not to interrupt or be rude, but you've mentioned partying quite a bit, and that's how psychosis was triggered for you.
So drug-induced psychosis. So I was taking things like MDMA, cocaine, ecstasy, drinking, alcohol, really whatever I could get my hands on at the time, mostly just party sort of drugs. And it was actually in Spain that it was more alcohol induced than sleep deprivation that took me over the edge. It was about 3 or 4 nights of not sleeping well and being sleep deprived, and I wasn't in touch with reality for a few days. I just had to, with the help of my ex-girlfriend at the time, enter myself into a psych ward in Spain. When I got into that psych ward, all I wanted...
In
Spain, yeah. So when I did enter that psych ward, all I wanted to do was sleep. They gave me medication to put me to sleep for 24 hours. I hadn't slept in a few days. And when I finally woke from my slumber, I woke up in a mental hospital in Spain where no one spoke English. And everyone, I was...
Wow. I can relate to that.
Yeah, it's scary. It was terrifying. I woke up and everyone was speaking Spanish around me, and I thought I was stuck in a place where no one would ever speak English ever again, and I'd never be able to communicate with people ever again. And I probably spent about 5 to 7 days in that hospital while I waited for my brother and my dad to fly over from Australia to release me and basically take me back to Australia. And I was allowed 1-hour visits from my ex-girlfriend at the time and a few friends that were with me at the time. They'd come and, we'd go out into the yard, I guess, or into the communal area where we'd play some table tennis. And I do remember when I had some friends there playing some table tennis, there was a man in a straitjacket with no teeth. And I was like, I was more actually ashamed to have my friends there with me and no.
So, Ross, I'm listening to what you're describing, and it sounds like it's been a pretty tormenting experience for you. It's not triggering for me in the least bit, but I feel like what you're describing is really painting the darker side of, I don't know, somebody just knocked on my door, painting the darker side of, that's the joys of recording in your living room, mental illness. And I know that is something we seek to strike the stigma out.
Yeah.
And I'm not trying to sugarcoat anything, but I want to explore, take us to your rock bottom. What was your absolute rock bottom moment where you were in psychosis or in mania or whatever, and really hit on that? Because I think that would provide some good content for your journey. And I really want to explore that with you if you're willing to go there. What say you?
Yeah. Well, I suppose where I was getting at with that was, eventually coming home back to Australia, and I just lived probably 2 years of just fun and traveling through Europe, South America, and living in the UK with all my friends for 2 or so years, and getting back, and I was that was probably having to deal with all my issues, My ex-girlfriend at the time actually stayed overseas, and I came back by myself with my brother and my dad. And that's when I sought professional help from psychiatrists and psychologists, and got to I suppose, the real tough part of dealing with my issues. And I think, after 2 years of so much fun and traveling the world and experiencing all these different things, getting back and being heavily medicated, I was on that many medications. I used to call myself the walking pharmacist because I just always had medication and pills on me, and I was literally like the Walking Dead. I was not really in touch with reality. Didn't want to leave the house. I can relate to that. Friends, when I first got back, they really just wanted to see me after being away for 2 years. So they all came round. They knew I didn't want to leave the house. So they all came round. It was probably about 10 of my friends who came round for a dinner. My mum cooked a dinner for them. And probably about an hour of them being there, I just freaked out. I thought everyone was talking about me. I was having all these paranoid thoughts that my friends hated me, and, just probably the worst thoughts you could imagine, thinking this is my fault. Everyone hates me because I've done bad things. I'm in my own interpretation of hell, and they never want to see me ever again because I basically locked myself in my room after having this amazing time away, and didn't want to see my friends. And I suppose they'd never, at the age of 22 or something, most of my friends hadn't really experienced anything like that. Probably there was one or two that.
Yeah, I can relate to that too, Ross. A lot of my friends didn't experience it before until I went to college and had my psychotic state that I talk about in season 1, episode 1, where I went psychotic, and my friends from college didn't know what to do. One friend who I happen to see today at church for the first time in years, his name is Ben Valentine, and he's a dear friend and has been a dear friend for years now, since we were in college. He knew exactly what to do, and it was only because of God, I believe. I don't know if y'all believe in God, but I do. And only because of God that he knew what to do. And he knew how to talk to me and treat me in psychosis, in a psychotic state. So I understand what you're saying, that your friends didn't know what to do. Yeah. I can relate to that as well. But what I'm happy to say is I also have the experience of having friends who do know what to do. And I'm finding now, the further I go along on my journey, not to take the spotlight from you, because this is your episode, but I'm just trying to add some content from my own experience, because I relate so strongly to what you just said. That I just, sorry, I'm losing my train of thought. Okay. Anyway, I just relate very strongly to what you said about dealing with people who don't know what you're dealing with and don't know what psychosis is. And I feel a very certain type of way about that now, and I'm just grateful to have people who do know how to treat me now in psychosis, as opposed to back then when I didn't have anybody, Jayne, your approach to holistically healing Ross, can you give us some insight to how you've done that?
Oh, so when I met Ross, he was kind of coming out the other end. That was in 2015. And he was still having night terrors and panic attacks quite regularly. But he was definitely not in that psychotic state when I met him. So he was definitely...
This is 10 years on.
I'm having a little bit of a hard time hearing you, Jayne. I don't know if it's because you're not wearing the mics that we tried earlier on. If you could just kind of project a little bit.
A little bit clearer. I'll raise my voice. Voice. Is this a little bit clearer? Okay. I'll talk into
that's
Ross's
a little bit
microphone.
clearer.
If it's your mic or try your mic, just hold it up.
Okay.
Beautiful. Sorry for you guys listening. Technical difficulties are a part of podcasting. I'll edit this.
Perfect.
That's much better. Heads
so when
and
I
heels.
met Ross in 2015, he was definitely coming out of his psychosis. He'd done a lot of work on himself as well. And he was, he'd come off a little bit of his medications, but for me, it was really about just supporting him, offering him mindfulness solutions. He would still have night tremors, night terrors where he would wake up screaming in the middle of the night every night. He would still have quite often panic attacks if I was somewhere else in the house. Sometimes he might go into a little bit of a slight psychosis where he thought he was all alone again or locked in a room and he didn't know what was going on, and he would scream out to find me and, you know, are you here? Am I back in my hellish state? And so it was really about being there. Yeah, very occasionally. Yeah, it wasn't regular. So it was really about supporting Ross and just...
Yeah. No, that's very frightening. That's very frightening.
Yeah, that happened, on several occasions where I think I just left the room or gone somewhere else and Ross, maybe something triggered you, and it was very much, in minutes I'd hear screams and, are you here? Am I by myself? And I guess that was the mind, again, starting to create scenarios or stories and, go into quite a dark place. So for me, it was really just about being there and supporting.
So what specifically did you...
Sorry.
I'm sorry. You may have just answered the question I was going to ask.
Yeah, so it was more about just being there in a present state with Ross, but also really helping him with mindfulness techniques. And if he was having panic attacks and activating that parasympathetic nervous system, working on his breathing, working on visualizations, listening to music, and really breaking things down for him. And sometimes when he was studying and he would have panic attacks that he wasn't going to get the work completed, bringing it back, going to worst case scenarios. Okay, it's not the end of the world. You're still here. You've still got your health. You've still got your family, your friends who all love you, and bringing it back to, if you don't hand this assignment, that's okay. And just really kind of, I guess, trying to assist Ross with his process and really just be in a very present, supportive state with him most of the time.
Yeah. I love it. God, you guys have been through hell and back. And I really respect both of you for the journeys that you've gone separately to get to where you are now together and be able to support each other in this treacherous life we live with mental illness.
My confidence has grown out of...
We don't have a lot of time because...
I was just going to say my confidence is like skyrocketed since meeting Jayne, and she's just been like my rock and just been so supportive over the past.
But at the end of the day, Ross has done the work for himself, and I think that's so important to acknowledge. Like, I've helped and assisted guiding, but Ross has done all the work, because it's easy to say these things, but unless you're willing to put in the effort and work on yourself, you're not going to come up with these outcomes. And so it's a tribute to Ross and his journey, and a lot of time and energy on really finding himself and growing as a person and doing a lot of internal work to where he is now. Yeah.
Yeah. I love that. And I love that you can mutually praise each other and recognize the work that's been done, because I think that's a huge thing that people overlook often is accolades, and properly giving someone praise, especially in today's society. So I try, as the Bipolar Bachelor and Jarred Madison Frey in my personal life and on this podcast, to try and allocate praise to come off as genuine and to come off as appropriate, So what I'm about to say to you guys in closing, I know we said this was going to be a full episode, but we're having technical difficulties, and I'd like to have you guys on for a part 2.
Thank you.
To be fair.
I'd love to.
So we'll do a 2-parter if you're up for it. I see that you are. And I would love to just not redo this, but continue on this discussion. So we'll do a 2-parter for you guys. So for those of you listening, we're having a lot of technical difficulties. For those of you watching, you're getting to see the nuts and bolts behind all this, and there's a lot of delays and everything. So hopefully next time around, we won't have any problems. But in closing, Ross, the only thing I can say to you, man, is you are brilliant. You are a warrior. You are strong, and you are handsome as hell. And I mean that no homo.
I'm very biased, but he is.
So If you can see them laughing, they're both cracking up right now. Yeah. I'm not hitting on him, Jayne. He's all yours, babe. So, I'm not even gay. For those of you that may be asking that question, I'm not gay. So, not that it matters. If I was, it wouldn't be your place to know. But I identify as a heterosexual male. So, for those of you wondering, I think you're incredibly brave. I think you're incredibly resilient. And I learned about the difference between resilience and tough. And I posed that question in my Instagram story today. No one has yet to interact with it, but I asked the question, am I resilient or am I tough? Tough breaks under pressure. Resiliency flexes under pressure. And Ross, you've shown that you can be resilient as well as tough.
Thank you.
So, Jayne, for you, I would like to say thank you for coming alongside of Ross. I don't know if he tells you, but I'm going to tell you. Thank you for coming alongside of Ross and for supporting him, because I hope to have a wife one day as beautiful as you, Jayne. You are beautiful both physically and in spirit and in truth. And I think that you have just this beauty that shines from within. You're beautiful to look at, but like you have this beauty that shines from within that's so rare nowadays. And to come alongside your husband in his darkest hours, you got me emotional. I never cry, and I'm emotional. So I just want to give you both praise that is due, respectively and separately and together. You guys are an inspiration to me. I knew we were brought together for a reason. God brought us together for a reason. And I'm excited to see this journey unfold in the next part. So stay tuned for part 2 of episode 6. Whatever episode this is, I don't know yet. Stay tuned for part 2 of episode 6 to come in the future. We've got some more content coming your way with Stefan and Justin Allen of Anxious Ambition Podcast, who I'm representing right now. I'm wearing his merch. Go check him out, Anxious Ambition. And this has been the Bipolar Bachelor Podcast. Ross and Jayne Quick, the stars of the night. Guys, as you can hear, my voice is failing me. This is the second podcast I've done today, as I said in the beginning. And I'm emotional. I'm emotional because you guys have such a beautiful story. And I so appreciate you guys coming on and being willing to share this with us. And I don't know where I would be if I hadn't met Ross and Jayne Quick. I wouldn't be as happy as I am in this moment. And I wouldn't be as grateful to God for allowing me to not commit suicide in my darkest hour, as Ross, you well know from your story. I'm grateful. I'm so grateful to God for that. So that's going to be where we'll end it here. And I appreciate you guys listening on Instagram, Facebook, Twitter, YouTube, TikTok, whatever you're listening on. The podcast. Thank you for listening to the podcast. I appreciate you guys very much. And I thank you. I honor you. I love you guys. I love you guys very much. I thank you for coming on today and being our guest. I'm looking forward to part 2. So let's record it tomorrow.
Thank you so much for having us too.
Do you guys have anything you'd like to say in closing?
I'd just like to thank you for giving us this opportunity to share our story through what you're going through as well. I think that's, so courageous of you. So thank you from our hearts to yours.
Thank you, Jarred.
I appreciate that, Jayne. I appreciate that very much. You have no idea how much that means to me. So especially dealing with what I'm currently facing.
And I think through Ross,
but it comes and it goes. This is a journey of bipolar disorder.
I was just going to say, when Ross was really struggling, I think this would have been challenging for you to talk about it like you are. So I think you're doing an amazing job being able to openly and authentically talk about what you're experiencing and going through, because that's a really, really hard challenge in itself.
Yeah, you're too kind. Thank you. I appreciate that. We grow, and we grow. So, Ross and Jayne Quick, thank you guys for listening. Until part 2. Make sure to look out for that next episode will be part 2 of this continuation. So tune in to the next one or fast forward. Guys, y'all don't leave. I'm going to stop the recording.
Thanks so much.
All right.